For a few terrifying years, pirates built an empire without a king, conquered the Atlantic through fear alone, and forced entire merchant fleets to surrender without a fight, until the British Crown answered with relentless hunts, public executions, and iron gibbets that shattered the Black Flag forever and buried history's most feared pirate empire beneath the sea. Enjoy the video, and don't forget to subscribe. Trace your finger along the map from the coast of West Africa, across the Atlantic, toward the Bahamas, and picture the year 1718 as the smell of rotting oak, boiling pine tar, damp hemp, rigging, stale bilge water, salted beef, and sulfur from recently discharged cannon drifts across gray swells beneath heavy clouds. Listen to the snapping canvas stretched across towering lower masts, while deadeyes groan beneath enormous tension, and every timber within the tumble home of a weather-beaten pirate brig responds with a deep wooden creak carried across the sea by a stiff easterly wind. What later generations called a pirate empire possessed no king, no parliament, and no permanent capital. Yet for several astonishing years it controlled shipping routes, stretching thousands of miles from the Carolinas to Jamaica, and from the Windward Passage to the approaches of Havana. Between roughly 1716 and 1722, hundreds of merchant captains calculated that surrender offered greater odds of survival than resistance, because pirate flotillas appeared with terrifying speed wherever profitable trade converged. Many pirate vessels displaced between 80 and 120 tons, measuring nearly 70 to 90 feet along the keel, with English oak futtocks fastened by hand-forged iron spikes and sealed through repeated careening using heated pine tar driven over tightly packed oakum. These ships rarely matched naval frigates in artillery, yet superior maneuverability, experienced helmsmen, and ruthless intimidation transformed them into floating instruments of economic warfare. Their crews rejected royal discipline and instead signed detailed articles of agreement defining compensation for injuries, voting rights, shares of captured cargo, and punishments for theft, desertion, or cowardice, creating an organization unlike anything most European merchants had ever encountered. Far from being isolated criminals, pirate captains transformed hidden anchorages into an interconnected maritime network where intelligence traveled faster than many official dispatches carried by the Royal Navy. Nassau on New Providence emerged as the most infamous sanctuary, its shallow approaches discouraging large warships, while nimble sloops slipped through channels known only to experienced local pilots. Warehouses overflowed with barrels of flour, salted pork, gunpowder, sailcloth, cordage, medicine, and stolen textiles exchanged through merchants willing to ignore imperial law in exchange for enormous profits. Letters of marque, issued during earlier European wars, had trained thousands of privateers in navigation, boarding tactics, and artillery before peace abruptly left them unemployed, pushing many toward piracy, with ships already equipped for combat. A typical pirate broadside relied upon cast bronze or iron cannon, ranging from 4 to 9 pounds, loaded with carefully measured black powder composed of approximately 75% saltpeter, 15% charcoal, and 10% sulfur. Once the glowing slow match ignited the priming charge, expanding gases hurled solid iron shot through oak planking with such force that long splinters erupted from the inner hull like deadly wooden spears, often causing greater casualties than the cannonball itself. Experienced gunners timed each discharge to the precise roll of the vessel, reducing recoil by securing every carriage with heavy breaching ropes woven from thick hemp. While frightened merchant crews struggled to reload under smoke and confusion, pirate boarders prepared pistols, cutlasses, boarding axes, and iron hooks, waiting for grappling lines to pull both hulls together until the distance between life and death measured only a few feet. As pirate influence expanded across the Caribbean and the Western Atlantic, their greatest weapon became fear rather than raw firepower. Merchant captains often recognized familiar silhouettes long before they could identify a flag, spotting low, fast hulls with sharply raked masts designed to overtake heavily burdened trading vessels carrying sugar, tobacco, indigo, cocoa, silver, or enslaved cargo. A merchant ship displacing nearly 200 tons could carry wealth worth tens of thousands of pounds sterling. Yet its crew frequently numbered fewer than 30 exhausted sailors, while an attacking pirate sloop of barely 90 tons might unleash more than 100 determined boarders. The pirates deliberately maintained weathered appearances, blackened clothing, multiple pistols tucked into broad leather belts, and smoldering slow matches woven into hats to create the illusion of supernatural figures emerging through drifting cannon smoke. Captains studied prevailing winds, tidal currents, reefs, and hidden shoals with remarkable precision, using sounding leads and carefully marked charts copied from captured navigators. Every successful capture strengthened the growing pirate network by providing fresh provisions, stronger rigging, replacement spars, navigational instruments, and skilled prisoners who often accepted recruitment rather than imprisonment. Ships required relentless maintenance, from replacing cracked futtocks and reinforcing weakened knees to driving fresh oakum into open seams before sealing them beneath layers of boiling pine tar during another laborious careening. Without constant repairs, tropical shipworms bored through submerged planking, salt water penetrated weakened joints, and structural strength rapidly declined. Pirate survival depended not only upon violence, but also upon practical seamanship, disciplined sail handling, efficient cooperation, and an intimate understanding of the Atlantic that rivaled many officers serving in the world's greatest navies. The growing pirate empire eventually threatened far more than individual merchant ships. Insurance costs soared across London, Bristol, and Amsterdam as entire convoys demanded naval escorts before crossing the Atlantic. Colonial governors reported abandoned trade routes, ruined plantations awaiting supplies, and frightened crews refusing to sail through waters where pirate lookouts watched from hidden coves. The British Crown answered by expanding naval patrols, offering royal pardons to those willing to surrender, and dispatching experienced captains to hunt pirate strongholds. Warships carrying 20 to 40 guns systematically destroyed hidden bases, seized supply vessels, and captured leaders whose executions were intended to shatter the myth that piracy could survive forever. Yet even as the noose tightened, many pirate captains refused to surrender, believing the open sea still offered one final chance at freedom. The final collapse came between 1719 and 1722 as coordinated naval campaigns, improved intelligence, and relentless pursuit dismantled the network that had once dominated the Atlantic. Pirate sloops were intercepted before reaching friendly anchorages, stolen cargoes were recovered, and informants revealed secret harbors previously hidden behind reefs and mangrove swamps. Captured crews faced trials under Admiralty law, where convictions were swift and punishments deliberately public. At Execution Dock on the Thames, condemned pirates were hanged before crowds, and many bodies were later suspended inside iron gibbets along the river so every passing sailor could witness the fate awaiting those who challenged the authority of the crown. Although the pirate empire survived for only a few extraordinary years, its influence reshaped naval strategy, colonial administration, and maritime commerce across the Atlantic world. Governments strengthened convoys, expanded overseas squadrons, improved intelligence networks, and tightened control over colonial ports to prevent another such uprising from emerging. The names of Blackbeard, Bartholomew Roberts, Charles Vane, and countless lesser-known captains became symbols of an era when disciplined seamanship, ruthless ambition, and the vastness of the ocean briefly overwhelmed the greatest empires on Earth. Their ships have long since vanished beneath salt water and sand, but the fear they created echoed across generations, ensuring that the Golden Age of Piracy would remain one of history's most terrifying chapters.